Have you ever wondered why the more available you are, the less people seem to value you? You respond to every text within seconds. You pick up every call, no matter what you're doing. You say yes to every plan, every favor, every late night I need to talk. You show up, always. And at some point, you started believing that's what love is. Loyalty, presence, reliability. You thought being there for them, constantly, would make them love you more. But let's be real. What did they give you back? Silence, distance, disrespect, ghosting. You gave them time. They gave you absence. You gave them attention. They gave you indifference. And somehow, you thought that was okay, that it was your job to keep pouring in, no matter how little you got in return. Here's the brutal truth. You weren't being loving. You were being accessible. And in this world, what's always accessible becomes invisible. People don't treasure what they can always reach. They treasure what they think they might lose. Niccolo Machiavelli once said, "Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. All men have eyes, but few have the gift of penetration." Meaning, people don't look deeply. They respond to what they see. And if what they see is someone who's always there, always forgiving, always the emotional safety net, they stop looking. They stop chasing. You've been told that love is about staying close, showing up, always being ready. But here's the hard truth. People don't chase what they already have. They chase what they fear losing. And right now, they feel no fear because they know you'll text back, you'll answer, you'll forgive. No matter how they treat you, you'll be there. You've become predictable, and predictability kills desire, kills intrigue, kills appreciation. Not because you're not valuable, but because your value is too easy to access. Let me break it down like this. When something is abundant, it's taken for granted. But when something is rare, it's treasured. Think about diamonds. They're just rocks, right? But they're hard to get. And because of that, people die for them. Not because they're better than gravel, but because they're scarce. Now imagine someone hands you a full bucket of diamonds every morning for free. Would you still treat each one with care? Would you still lock them in a safe? Would you still notice if one went missing? That's how people are treating you right now. You're the diamond, but you're showing up like gravel. Always available, always giving, always there. And when something is always there, it becomes background noise, like furniture, like wallpaper. Familiar, useful, but invisible. You were there when they had nothing. You believed in them when they were falling apart. You held their hand, heard their pain, cleaned up their emotional mess. You gave them your time, your words, your heart. And what did they give back? Delays, excuses, breadcrumbs, distractions. They test how far they can go, how much they can take, because they've learned, consciously or not, that no matter how they act, you won't walk away. That's not love. That's emotional imprisonment. And the chains, you built them with your own consistency, with your own overgiving. But what if you changed? What if instead of always being the first to reach out, you didn't? What if instead of replying instantly, you took your time or didn't reply at all? What if instead of orbiting their life, you disappeared from their radar? Here's what would happen. At first, they'd feel relief. They'd think you're sulking. They'd assume you're just taking a break. They'd wait for the usual cycle. Maybe they'll send a, "Hey, you okay?" text, maybe a random like on your story, something subtle to test the waters. But then, you don't bite. You don't respond. You don't engage. You don't orbit. And that's when the panic starts. Because for the first time, you're not playing the role. You're not being predictable. You've introduced something new into the equation. Uncertainty. And nothing makes people spiral like uncertainty. They start wondering, where did you go? Who are you talking to? Did you move on? Are you done with me? They start decoding silences, replaying old conversations, reanalyzing everything they once ignored. Because humans don't obsess over what they understand. They obsess over what they confuse them. They don't chase what's certain, they chase what they think they're about to lose. But here's the mistake most people make when they try to pull back. They leak energy. They don't text, but they watch every story. They don't call, but they like every post. They stop showing up, but their energy is still loud. That's not scarcity. That's just acting. And the thing about acting is, it's easy to see through. True scarcity isn't about playing games. It's about actually being gone. Emotionally, mentally, energetically. Not to punish them, but to reset the balance.
Let me make this simple. Obsession isn't created by looks, or charm, or even intelligence. It's created by this formula. High value plus limited access equals obsession. You can be the most caring, thoughtful, self-aware person on the planet, but if you're emotionally infinite, people will stop seeing your worth. Not because you're not special, but because you're too easy to reach. And when people can always reach you, they don't reach for you. There was a man, let's call him Leo. Everyone said he was loyal, kind, solid, dependable. He was the guy who never forgot a birthday, who always replied within seconds, who stayed even after being ignored or disrespected. And guess what? No one stayed for him. Because Leo never became rare. He never disappeared. He never let anyone wonder. He was always there. So people got used to him, like an old chair in the corner. Useful, comfortable, but unnoticeable. But then, Leo changed. Not through rage, not through a meltdown, but through absence. He didn't make a scene. He didn't post quotes about loyalty. He didn't throw shade. He just stopped showing up. And that's when the texts came back. Hey, stranger, how have you been? I was just thinking about you. Not because they missed him deeply, but because they missed the version of themselves who had someone wrapped around their finger. They missed the control. And Machiavelli, he understood this perfectly. He said, men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. Leo had been loved weakly, lazily. But once people feared they had lost him, that's when obsession began.
See, here's something people won't tell you. We don't obsess over what's good. We obsess over what's rare. You can be the smartest, most emotionally in tune, generous person they've ever met. But if you're always available, if they know they can reach you anytime, your value plummets. Not because you changed, but because your accessibility changed how they see you. When you're too available, it creates something I call emotional inflation. Just like printing too much money devalues currency, giving too much of your time and presence devalues you. Because your energy, once rare and precious, is now something they assume will always be there. Let's go back to Machiavelli for a second. He said, "Appear rarely, and you will be desired intensely. Appear constantly, and you will be ignored effortlessly." And he's right. People don't respect what they can control. They don't obsess over what's always there. They obsess over mystery, over distance, over tension. Why? Because tension creates thought, and thought leads to obsession. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you couldn't reach someone you wanted? Maybe they didn't answer a text. Maybe they went quiet for a few days. Remember how your mind spun? How you thought about them more during that silence than you ever did when they were texting constantly? That space, that uncertainty, made you chase, made you wonder, made you feel. Now flip the script. You've been too available, too obvious, too predictable. And what has it earned you? Exhaustion, burnout, confusion, being taken for granted. Because somewhere along the line, your presence stopped being a gift and started feeling like a given. That's why detachment is powerful. Not fake detachment, not look at me pretending I don't care detachment. Real, quiet, calm, non-performative detachment, where you reclaim your energy, your peace, and your power, not to punish them, but to restore you. Because here's the formula again, and I want you to remember it. High value, limited access equals obsession. Not drama, not manipulation, not loud exits or public breakdowns, just scarcity, pure emotional scarcity. And no, this isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to keep, and there's a big difference. Let's go back to Leo. When he disappeared, they didn't just miss his presence. They panicked at the absence of certainty. They could no longer predict him, and unpredictability is like emotional quicksand. It drags people in. Because when someone who was always reachable suddenly isn't, the brain spirals. Did I mess up? Is he mad? Is he seeing someone? They don't want you back because they love you. They want you back because they hate not knowing where they stand. Because you used to be a mirror for their ego, and now they're staring into silence. And what do most people do at this point? They come back. But here's the twist. They don't come back fully. They come back light, casual, safe, with a hey, with a comment on a post, with a little breadcrumb to test if you're still you. Why? Because they want to know if you'll break character, if you'll go back to being the emotional butler, the support system, the ever-available comfort zone. That's why I'm telling you, scarcity has to be real. Not staged, not theatrical, not dramatic, real. Because the second you like a post out of nostalgia, or reply too fast, or send something that says, "I'm still thinking of you," you've shattered the illusion. You've told them, "I'm still emotionally available." And the game resets. Back to square one. They know you're still reachable, still orbiting. That's why true scarcity isn't about silence. It's about peaceful absence. You don't disappear to get revenge. You disappear to heal, to protect your energy, to reset the emotional economy. Let's get clear on something. You will lose people. You'll lose the ones who only stayed because you were easy, the ones who liked you weak, the ones who fed off your emotional addiction to them. But you'll also gain. You'll gain space, you'll gain clarity, you'll get your edge back, your power. And most importantly, you'll gain respect. Because respect isn't earned through kindness alone. It's earned through boundaries, through becoming someone people can't just summon like an Uber whenever they're lonely or bored. You're not a convenience. You're a person. And the more you let people treat you like an app, the more you forget your worth. That's why detachment works. Not because it punishes others, but because it reintroduces mystery. And mystery is the breeding ground for obsession. People chase what confuses them. They don't chase what's familiar. They chase what makes them question themselves. And the most powerful way to create that confusion? Replace yourself emotionally, quietly, calmly, without warning. No fights, no long speeches, no announcements. Just gone. And when they do reach out, because they will, you don't answer like the old you. You don't jump at the notification. You don't pour out your feelings. You observe. You let them talk into the void. Because here's what they're really trying to find out. Do I still have power over you? And your job is to show them, without saying a word, that the answer is no.
Now, let's talk about the next phase, the part they didn't see coming.
They'll start small, a casual message, a meme, a "hey stranger," nothing too deep. They're testing, seeing if the old version of you is still there, waiting, hoping, needing. Some will come with jokes, some with guilt. Some might even throw insults at you just to stir up a reaction. But they all want the same thing: control. They don't actually want to reconnect, not yet. What they want is to know they still have access to your emotions, that you're still orbiting, still waiting. That's why your silence matters more than ever. Every time you respond, even slightly, you leak power. You tell them, yes, I'm still emotionally tied to you. And just like that, you go from mystery to memory. But if you stay still, if you stay quiet, they spiral. They stalk your profile. They ask mutual friends what you're up to. They try to trigger you, provoke you, bait you. Because they're not just missing you anymore. They're obsessed with figuring you out. And that's the turning point. Because obsession doesn't begin with pleasure, it begins with loss. They don't become obsessed when things are easy. They become obsessed when they feel like they're losing something they didn't know was valuable until it was gone. That's the power of unpredictability. When they can't read you, they panic. When they can't predict you, they question themselves. And that's where obsession takes root, not in clarity, but in confusion. And Machiavelli, he understood this down to the bone. He said, "A wise ruler should appear merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and religious, but should be ready to act contrary to those qualities when necessary." Translation: you can be good, you can be kind, but when it's time to protect your peace, you must be willing to become unavailable. Not out of cruelty, but out of self-respect. Because until now, you've been giving away your power, giving away your energy, giving away your presence like it was nothing, like it wasn't sacred, like it wasn't the most valuable thing you own. It's time to stop. You don't need to scream, you don't need to post quotes or subtweets or emotional stories. You don't need to say, "Look at me walking away." You just walk. That's real power. Real power is quiet. It doesn't explain, it doesn't broadcast, it moves in silence. And by the time they notice, you're already gone. You're not doing this to make them miss you. You're doing this to remember yourself. And yes, it'll hurt. There will be moments you want to reach out, moments you'll wonder if you're being too cold, too distant, too unforgiving. But just remember, every time you go back, you teach them they never really lost you. You confirm that all they have to do is wait long enough and you'll eventually fold. And that's not love. That's not strength. That's emotional relapse. Let me be brutally honest here. You're not trying to win. You're not trying to prove anything. You're not even trying to be desired. You're trying to reclaim your value. Because until now, you've been bargaining with your own peace, offering it up like a coupon code, hoping someone, anyone, would redeem it. But now you're scarce. And scarcity creates mythology. You're no longer the person who replies in seconds. You're no longer the comfort zone. You're not the emotional safety net they once mistook for weakness. You're the ghost in the fog, the presence that once was, the figure they underestimated until it vanished. Let's make this even simpler. If you want to be remembered, disappear silently. If you want to be valued, become expensive. If you want to be chased, stop being predictable. And if you want to be powerful, stop being accessible to those who treat you like a convenience.
Machiavelli said something chilling, but true. Men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance. What does that mean for you? It means this: your absence should feel like a theft, like something they lost,
Not because it died, but because they let it slip through their fingers. They didn't own you, but now that you're gone, they feel like something precious was taken. And that is when they start to realize what they had. But by then, you're already gone. You've moved on, not to spite them, not to break them, but to finally give yourself the love you kept begging others for. No more begging, no more bleeding for people who treat your emotions like entertainment. No more waiting for someone to wake up. You are no longer the person they thought they could call at 2 a.m., ignore all day, breadcrumb for weeks, and still expect to stick around. You've become the one they now miss because they no longer understand you. And what the mind can't understand, it obsesses over. So be rare, be distant, be unavailable by default, not because you're bitter, but because you're finally aware of your worth. That is the power Machiavelli was talking about. The power of emotional discipline. The power of being hard to reach. And once people believe they can no longer access you at will, that's when the game flips. That's when you stop being an option and start being a mystery. And in a world where everything is accessible, mystery is the ultimate currency.